Let's be clear, your life is full of things that simply don't serve you, that hinder you and steal your energy. But have you ever wondered why you keep carrying these things? Sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is not to make noise, but to silently eliminate everything that doesn't add to us. Toxic relationships, as well as self-destructive habits, are also important. And no, you don't need to make a spectacle of it or wait for anyone's approval. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to follow the advice of Stoic philosophy. Let go of what you can't control and free yourself. Because friend, life is too short to be tied to other people's expectations. I'm going to show you, step by step, how to eliminate 10 things that are undoubtedly making your life chaos, not only physically, but also mentally. These things are destroying you before you even realize it. If you don't act, you could lose something even more important, your peace. So start today, silently and without excuses. In the end, what you leave behind says more about you than what you try to hold on to. You're ready to start living for real. But before you start, pay attention to this story that will help you better understand the wisdom contained in this material. In a small village by the sea, there lived a young fisherwoman named Helena. She was known for her ability to navigate the most turbulent waters, and for her incredible fishing skills in the most difficult days. However, over the years, Helena accumulated a large amount of nets and broken tools that she no longer used. But out of pure habit, she kept them every time she went out to sea. The space in her small boat was full of things that got in the way of her work. One day, while she was preparing for a long journey on the ocean, a strong storm formed. The waves hit her boat, and she realized that the excess of things she was carrying was greatly hindering her ability to maneuver for hours. She fought against the storm, but she felt that it was not only the waves that were her enemy, but also the unnecessary load that drove her to the brink of despair. Helena made a difficult but necessary decision. She began to get rid of what was no longer useful. First, she threw away the broken nets, then the old and worn ropes, and finally even some objects that she kept out of attachment, but that were no longer useful. With each thing that she let go, her boat became lighter and she could maneuver better. The waves continued strong, but Helena no longer cared for them. She felt trapped by the weight of the past. Thanks to this attitude, she was able to stay afloat, and finally, when the storm passed, she returned to the port. She was exhausted, but safe. When her fellow fishermen saw her return, they asked her how she had survived the storm. Helena answered with a calm smile. There are times in life when we hold on to things we don't need, objects, memories, or people who only add weight to our journey. Only when we decide to let go of the unnecessary, silently and without drama, do we find the freedom to move forward more easily. The moral of this story is that in life, there are many things that we need to eliminate silently in order to move forward. Sometimes the burden we carry prevents us from sailing lightly, and only by letting go of this weight can we discover our true path. Before we begin with the first lesson, if you find this type of video useful, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay up to date with the news. Let's start with the fear of other people's opinions. Have you ever wondered how many decisions in your life were made out of fear of what others might think? This fear that infiltrates your skin and prevents you from being yourself. It's like living on a continuous stage, under the critical gaze of an audience that in reality isn't even paying attention to you. Do you know why most of the time people are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to judge you? Even so, you paralyze yourself. The fear of other people's judgment is like a silent parasite that feeds on your dreams, that sticks to your back and beats in your ear every time you think about doing something different or daring. What will others think? And suddenly you change direction, adapt your life to what you believe others expect of you. What irony! We spend so much time worried about other people's opinions that without realizing it, we stop living the life we really want. This fear pushes us to please people who often aren't even part of our real life, as if our compass was out of adjustment. Instead of following the north of our intuition, we follow the south dictated by society. You wear the mask that best fits the expectations of the moment. At work, with friends, even on social media. But what about the real you, the one that is hidden under layers of fake smiles and borrowed opinions? Sometimes the fear of what people will say is even more subtle. It becomes disguised as prudence. It's not the time, maybe I'm not good enough, excuses disguised as wisdom that deep down hide the same monster, the fear of being judged by others. And in the meantime, dreams are shelved, waiting for a better moment that never comes. To eliminate this fear once and for all, we need to practice Stoic philosophy. The Stoics teach that we can't control what others think of us, but we can control how we react to it. It seems simple, but it isn't. It requires a constant exercise of introspection and courage. It's about learning to live for yourself, to make decisions that make you happy and not just to please others. Life is too short to be lived under the shadow of other people's opinions. A good exercise is to start silently eliminating things that don't bring value to your life, those that are only there to please others. You feel obligated to maintain a certain image. You chose a career that doesn't satisfy you because it seemed like the right choice. Free yourself from these ties. Start with small decisions. Say no to commitments you don't want to make. Do something you've always wanted to do but were afraid to do because of what others might think. That every little action will be a step towards freedom. I won't lie, it's not easy. There will be days when the weight of other people's judgment will seem overwhelming. But in those moments, remember, every time you choose to live according to what others think, you lose a piece of who you really are. It's a kind of slow and silent death that you can avoid if you have the courage to be true to yourself. Then start eliminating these things in silence. You don't need to announce it to the world. Just let go of what isn't yours, what doesn't belong to your essence. Learn to trust your own judgment and to value what you think of yourself more than what others might think. Because at the end of the day, the only person you owe an explanation to is yourself. As Carl Jung said, freedom begins the moment you stop worrying about what others think of you. The toxic relationships have a phrase that I love. There's no one worse blind than the one who doesn't want to see. I'm sure you've heard it right. Interestingly, we often apply this selective blindness to our own relationships. We're used to dealing with people who somehow they take more from us than they give us. Yes, I'm talking about those toxic relationships that, without you realizing it, gradually drain your energy. And the most curious thing is that you often cling to them as if they were indispensable. I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. Toxic relationships can be found anywhere in your family, in your group of friends, at work. And the most interesting thing is that no one forces you to keep them, but there you are, tolerating them in silence, as if letting go were an affront to the world. Why do we do this? Maybe because we were taught that breaking ties is a sign of weakness or insensitivity, as if eliminating someone from your life were an act of cruelty, when in fact it can be the greatest gesture of self-love that you can perform. Let's bring a little philosophy to this conversation. The Stoics teach us that we shouldn't worry about what we can't control. This also applies to the people around us. You can't control how others act, but you can control whether or not you want to keep them in your life. I'm the simple one, but here's the hard part. Doing this in silence. And don't get me wrong, it's not about silent revenge or feeling superior. It's simply a conscious decision to no longer feed a relationship that wears you down. Think about it. You don't need a drama to eliminate what doesn't serve you. There's no need to announce it to everyone you're detoxing from. People just let go. It's like stopping watering a plant that no longer blooms. You do it calmly, knowing that it's no longer part of your garden, and that's okay. The plant follows its path. You follow yours and life goes on. Have you ever spent time with someone really close and left that interaction completely exhausted? It's not that this person is bad, but their energy doesn't match yours. That's where the key comes in detecting these relationships. Listen to your body, your mind. If you feel that each interaction with a certain person is a real emotional marathon, maybe you're in a toxic relationship. It can be painful to admit, but it's necessary. This is where the silent strategy comes in. Gradually reduce interactions. Stop seeking contact. Distance yourself. No grand gestures or fights are necessary. Just stop being available. It's liberating, believe it. Not because you're turning your back on the world, but because you're prioritizing your well-being. Sometimes self-love is not saying no out loud, but say enough in silence. So how to identify these relationships is simple. If every time you see a message from this person you feel a knot in your stomach, if going out with them leaves you more exhausted than an entire week of work, if you realize that it is always you who gives and never receives, you already have the answer. When this becomes clear, start the elimination process. No drama, no unnecessary explanations. Just move on. Conclusion: it is not about being cruel or holding a grudge. It is about respecting yourself enough to not allow them to continue draining the energy that you could use with people and activities that truly nourish you. In the end, the key is to be honest with yourself and to put your well-being above guilt or fear of hurting others. Keep this clear, my friend. Some people are like the wind. You wave, but you can't hold on to them. You just have to let them pass. 3 self-destructive habits. Sometimes you catch yourself doing little things that if you look closely you know are not taking you anywhere. They are those actions that seem harmless at first, but that without realizing it or wearing away your mental or physical peace. I have also fallen into this trap more times than I would like to. Admit small self-destructive habits that go unnoticed like a constant drip. That over time wears down even the rock. But what happens if these habits are the rocks of our daily life? How to eliminate them? Without making a fuss, first you have to recognize them, and that's the trick. It's not easy to point out what bothers us in others is one thing, but identifying it in ourselves is different. You get up in the morning, and without thinking you pick up your cell phone, not for something important of course, but out of pure habit, as if your finger was programmed to swipe the screen. Before your brain has even woken up, it seems harmless right until you realize you've wasted 20 minutes of your morning immersed in nothing with your mind already saturated. Before you even get out of bed, this is just one example. We do this with so many other things. That coffee X that wasn't necessary, that conversation you knew you shouldn't have had, that series that doesn't add anything to you, but that you keep watching out of inertia. These are the little things that over time can create a big hole in your well-being. Now eliminating these habits is another story, let's be honest. How many times have you promised to leave something behind and ended up doing even more? Like when it says starting tomorrow I'm going to really start, and then tomorrow comes and it is just another day of excuses. That's where a lesson from the Stoics comes. And these philosophers from ancient Rome believed that great transformations don't happen all at once, but in small, silent, almost imperceptible steps. You don't need to shout to the world that you're going to change or make a grand gesture. Just start observing. The key is an awareness. When you notice that your hand is reaching for your cell phone for no reason, stop. There's no need to throw the cell phone out the window, although that might be cathartic. Just put it aside and do something else, something as simple as taking a deep breath and stretching. When you feel like having that third cup of coffee, ask yourself, do I really need this? Or is it just out of habit? If it's just inertia, leave the cup. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Stop at the right time. No drama, no need for monumental changes. Eliminating self-destructive habits doesn't mean you're going to become a perfect person overnight. We all have our little internal battles, and that's okay. The point is to approach them with a simple strategy: silence and consistency, like a drop that instead of wearing away will polishing little by little. And if one day you feel like you're not progressing, remember this: what today seems like a small effort over time turns into a big vid. You may not notice the results immediately, but it's like planting the seed. One day, without making a splash, it grows and becomes a tree. The same happens with these small adjustments. So the next time you identify a habit that harms you more than it helps you, eliminate it quietly. You don't need to announce it or make a big show. Just let it go step by step, drop by drop. As Epictetus said, true change doesn't happen. It just happens for the desire to control everything. Have you ever felt that if you don't have absolute control over everything around you, the world will fall apart? Don't worry, I understand, but we like to believe that if we organize every detail to the millimeter and prevent all unforeseen events, life will be like a perfectly adjusted machine where nothing can go wrong. What an absurd idea it is, but even so, we find ourselves trapped in this mental game, convinced that we can control everything that happens to us. It's a trap, a spectacle, and the worst thing is that the more we try to hold on to control, but we feel like we've lost our balance. So I ask you, how about letting go of this obsessive need for control? You know, this mania of wanting everything to be exactly as we imagine it. The desire to control everything is nothing more than a mental prison, one that we build brick by brick every time we believe that with enough effort things will turn out exactly as we planned. But you know what happens? The universe doesn't work. That Stoic philosophy, with its ancient wisdom that remains so current, teaches us that the key is not in controlling what we can't, but in letting go of the unnecessary and focusing on what really depends on us. Think about it. We try to control the weather, other people's opinions, people's reactions, the results of our efforts. Everything that is not really in our hands is like trying to hold back the tide with our hands. A complete waste of energy. Yet we do it constantly. And the worst thing is that every time something doesn't turn out as we expected, we get frustrated. We get irritated as if it were a cosmic injustice. How ironic, isn't it? Imagine that you carry a backpack. Every time you try to control something outside of your alk, you put a stone inside it. At first, you might not even feel the weight, but over time, the backpack becomes heavier, unbearably heavy. In the end, this load crushes you. Wouldn't it be better to get rid of these stones? Make room for what really matters, for what you can really control: your emotions, your actions, your choices. The rest let go. For a long time, I myself worried obsessively about predicting everything that could go wrong in my life. If I had a meeting I would plan every possible uncomfortable question if I planned to go out with friends. I worried about the place, the weather, anything that could go wrong. It was exhausting, and you know what happened most of the things I worried about never happened. In the end, I realized that this attempt to predict everything didn't give me any more control. It only gave me more anxiety, so I started to let go. Little by little, I learned to trust the process more, and what happened, things continued to happen, some good, others not so much, but I felt lighter because I had stopped carrying what wasn't my responsibility. Trusting in life doesn't mean being passive or irresponsible. It's about accepting with maturity that there are things that are out of our hands, and that's okay. Silently eliminate this need to control everything. I made room for the unexpected, for the surprises, for that which is beyond your reach. This does not mean that you should simply sit back and watch life go by. It is about releasing the weight and accepting that there is a part of the path that does not depend on you, and you know what else. This is liberating. Remember, sometimes letting go is the most powerful way of taking control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, true control lies in the ability to let go of the uncontrollable, unreal. See, I don't know about you, but I spent a good part of my life believing that I needed to be perfect. No one told me this directly, but it was in the air, hovering between the well-intentioned comments, the looks of approval, and that constant silent comparison with others. I grew up with the firm conviction that meeting the expectations of others, and even worse, my own, was synonymous with success. What a big lie. If you stop to think, trying to meet unrealistic expectations is like trying to fill a bottomless well with a leaky bucket. You never finish. You are always exhausted, and in the end, all that is left is a sad puddle of frustration at your feet. The curious thing, many of these expectations are not even ours. They were built by other, family, friends, society, and we accept them because in the search to be better, we decided that we need to fulfill them. Do a quick exercise. How many times have you ever felt disappointed for not achieving something that you didn't really want, because we set ourselves such high goals that if we fail, we feel useless? If I'm not the best at my job, the perfect partner, the ideal friend, the exemplary son, what's left of me? In the end, these expectations end up weighing more than our own actions. It's like running a marathon with a backpack full of rocks. You move forward more slowly, you get tired sooner, and even if you get to the end, you feel like you did it dragging your feet. What's the point? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in, which has a brilliant view on this. According to the Stoics, you can't control what others think of you, nor guarantee that the universe will act in your favor. What you can control is how you react to it. The key then is to reduce the burden, lower those expectations that suffocate you. If you expect less of yourself and others, it doesn't mean that you are conforming. It means that you are freeing yourself. You are no longer trapped by the constant pressure of living up to the impossible. You are simply existing and moving forward. Of course, this magic doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying to throw all your expectations out the window at once. Think of it like cleaning out a closet full of old clothes. First, look at what no longer fits you, what you never really liked, and get rid of one piece at a time. Sometimes you hesitate to let go of a shirt because you think you'll wear it someday, but deep down you know you won't. With expectations, it's the same. Start by eliminating those that don't belong to you, then review your own and ask yourself if they are realistic. You don't need to keep them all. Something that can help reduce expectations without creating drama is to change the way you talk to yourself. For example, instead of saying I need to do everything perfectly, try I'll do the best I can with what I have now. It seems simple, but it's liberating. You make room for error, which is human, and for the possibility of improving without constant pressure. Another infallible trick: avoid telling everyone your plans. The less noise you make, the less expectations others create about what you should achieve. After all, external expectations are just that worn out. Silently eliminate what doesn't suit you. You will notice that things start to flow much more naturally. Letting go of expectations is not giving up. It's an act of wisdom. Instead of focusing on what you should do or be, focused on what you really want and what is under your control. Less expectations, more freedom. Engrave this in your mind, my friend. The less you expect, the lighter you become. If the need to always be right, you realize that you have a mania, almost an obsessive need to always be right, to be the person who knows everything. It's as if every conversation were a battlefield, and victory was to prove that you are right. A silent but relentless fight. The worst this war is not with others, but with yourself. Every time you insist on having the last word, it's as if you need to convince yourself that your worth depends on it. Don't get tired, because honestly, I'm already exhausted from this endless race. We were taught to believe that we always need to have the right answer, as if making a mistake were synonymous with weakness. Society, social networks, and even family reunions reinforce the idea That failing is failing, but I'll tell you a secret: sometimes being right is the least important thing in life. Stoic philosophy teaches us to accept what we can't control. And you know what you can't control: the perception that others have of you. This endless proving that you know everything doesn't get you anywhere. It just makes you more anxious and frustrated. And at the end of the day, but alone, ask yourself, what I gain by always being right? An invisible medal doesn't seem worth the effort, isn't it? It's like carrying a suitcase full of unnecessary stones. With each argument or imposed opinion, you put another stone inside until the weight becomes unbearable. And you wonder why you're so exhausted. The answer is simple. You're wearing yourself out for something that has no real value. The next time you feel this urge to prove that you're right, try staying silent, not out of resignation, but out of liberation. It's like letting go of a pen that you've been holding for hours without realizing it. When you let go, you feel a relief that you didn't even know you needed. With the need to always be right, the same thing happens. When you let go of this burden, you realize that you were trapped in a goo that you didn't even want to fight. So how do you let go of this need? Accept that you don't need to know everything. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to have an opinion about everything. You're not competing in a wisdom contest. Learn to really listen, not to refute, but to understand. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a biological function. Listening is an art. When you listen carefully, the anxiety of going or imposing your point of view disappears. Enjoy the silence. Sometimes the best argument is simply allowing others to have the last word. Not all conversations need a winner, because in the end, winning an argument is not the same as having peace. It's worth always being right at the expense of your peace of mind. Not even the next time you're in a conversation and you feel that urge to correct or impose your opinion. Take a deep breath, let go pen, let go. The peace you will feel will be infinitely more valuable than any momentary victory if it serves as consolation. Remember the Stoics, they knew that true wisdom is not in being right, but in knowing when to let go. As Seneca said, true knowledge is not in winning all battles, but in knowing when not to fight. 7. Digital noise. Have you ever noticed how you are surrounded by digital noise? I am not just talking about the cars on the street or the neighbor who is drilling the wall, but that other noise, the one that's in your pocket, in your hands, in your eyes. Social networks, endless notifications, messages that don't stop coming. It seems like everything is designed to distract you, to keep you in a constant state of alert. And there you are, thinking you have control, when in fact it is the digital chaos that controls you. The reality is that we live in an era where silence is a luxury, but this luxury is not as unattainable as it seems. The first step is to understand what is really stealing your attention, because in fact there are things that you should silently eliminate from your life. And yes, this is possible. It is just not so obvious. I will be honest, the digital chaos does not disappear just because you close an app. That would be like trying to put out a fire with a glass of water. What you need is to be radical, like the Stoics, who knew that inner peace was what really mattered, and they did not achieve it by letting themselves be carried away by external distractions. So what should you silently eliminate from your life? Let's go first. Social networks. Yes, I know it sounds cliche, but believe me, the more accounts you follow, the more noise you create. I am not saying to disconnect completely, but think, do you really need to know what the cousin of a friend of your sister's friend is doing? Mercilessly eliminate everything that does not add to you. And if you can do a digital cleanse from time to time, like who organizes a closet, remove what you no longer need, what should never be there. First. Second, notifications. This is where things get interesting. Why do you allow your phone to interrupt you every few minutes? Every time it vibrates or makes a sound, your brain jumps. This not only steals your time, but also your mental energy. Turn off all non-essential notifications. At first, you may feel a certain anxiety, as if you were missing something. But then, when you realize how good it is to have control over when and how to check your phone, you will thank me. Third, the fear of missing something. The great modern villain. The fear of missing something. We live with the feeling that if we are not connected, we will miss something important. But here is an uncomfortable truth. What really matters is not on the screen. It is all around you, in the people around you, in the moments that pass unnoticed while you are stuck on the latest viral meme. Eliminate this fear. Let go of the need to be in everything, because the more you try to embrace the digital world, the more you lose than is really worth it. Once you get rid of this unnecessary noise, something magical happens. You start to hear what really matters. Digital silence is the first step to reconnecting with yourself, with your ideas, with your real priorities. This is where Stoic philosophy comes into play. You can't control what happens outside of you, but you can decide how you react to it. When you eliminate the digital noise, everything else becomes clearer. My advice is this: choose silence not as an absence of noise, but as a conscious presence of what you really want in your life, because in the end, that is the true luxury of our age. As Gans said, peace doesn't come when the noise fades away, but when you decide to listen to yourself. 8 negative thoughts. Have you ever stopped to notice how negative thoughts enter your mind almost without making a noise, as if they didn't want anything? They appear, and suddenly they are in control of everything. They are like those neighbors who arrive without warning, and worse, they don't leave the most frustrating. Often you give them the key not because you want to, but because they have convinced you that their presence is inevitable, a part of your daily life. But what if I told you that you can change the lock? Let's be clear, these thoughts are nothing more than destructive patterns that end up shaping your actions, and not in the best way. Surely you have already caught yourself thinking things like, why everything goes wrong for me, or I'll never get it. And of course, when these thoughts repeat themselves over and over again, you end up believing them, and what you believe you end up acting on. It's like planting a poison tree and wondering why the fruits are inedible. The curious thing is that these negative thoughts do not necessarily reflect reality, but they feel as real as the ground you walk on. This is where the Stoic philosophy comes in with its brutal simplicity. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. It seems so simple, but in practice it is something that often escapes us. We allow these mental patterns to dictate our emotions and actions, when true freedom is in taking control of our responses. And where to start? The first key is silence. Yes, you read that right. Eliminate these negative thoughts in silence. You don't need to make a show trying to push them away. Just start recognizing when they appear, identify them, and don't feed them. The more attention you give them, the more power they have. Think of it like a fly in the room. If you insist on catching it, you will only agitate it even more. How about ignoring it until it gets tired of flying? Second, question your thoughts. A destructive thought arises. Ask yourself, is this true? Is everything really going wrong? Or is it just an exaggerated perception? Many times you will realize that they are inflated ideas without any real basis, and if there is some truth, you can start thinking about solutions instead of getting stuck in the problem. Third, detachment. I am not telling you to become a monk on top of a mountain, but start taking emotional distance from your thoughts. They are not you. Just because something goes through your head does not mean you have to stay there. It takes practice, but little by little, you will learn to see them for what they really are. They are clouds in a sky that remains firm. Negative thoughts are one of those little things that you should silently eliminate from your life. They do not need fanfare. Just care with focus, patience, and internal questioning, because at the end of the day, what you think shapes what you do, and what you do defines who you are. As Brian Tracy said, thoughts are not facts, but if you believe in them, they become your reality. Not physical and mental disorder. Sometimes it happens that we wake up and feel that the world is a little heavier than normal. You look around you and realize that it is not just a feeling. Your space is full of things, objects, piles of papers, clothes thrown on the chair, and somehow your head also looks like a disorganized drawer. I don't know if this happens to you, but when my surroundings are a mess, I feel like my mind follows the same path. Physical and mental disorder, although it may not seem like it, are more connected than we would like to admit. There is something deeply exhausting about the disorder around us. Our disorganized space directly affects our mental clarity. The Stoics, for example, talked about the importance of focusing on the essentials, of eliminating the superfluous. And if you think about it, disorder is exactly the opposite of that. It is everything that is unnecessary, that distracts us and gets us mad. The accumulation of things doesn't just take up physical space, but also consumes energy. Every object out of place, every paper that should have been thrown away months ago, everything that blocks your path. All of this is not just accumulated material, it is noise, and noise that fills your mind with small pending tasks and worries that you didn't even know you had due. You know that feeling of wanting to organize something, but not knowing where. This is the secret. It's not about organizing everything at once, but about silently eliminate what is no longer useful. The first step is simple. Observe, look around, and ask yourself, do I really need all this? If you haven't used something for a long time, you probably don't need it anymore. But it's not just about material things. Mental clutter works the same way. Sometimes we accumulate thoughts, worries, and feelings like someone who keeps broken objects, thinking that one day they will be useful. The truth is that keeping all this just weighs us down. So what to do? Eliminate in silence. Little by little. You do need to make a big show of it. or announce it to the world. Just let go of what is no longer useful, both physically and mentally. Sometimes silence is an act of rebellion in a world full of noise. If there are people in your life who make you feel uneasy, projects that no longer motivate you, thoughts that only drain you, get rid of them. No dramas, no explanations, no more beating around the bush than necessary. Just let them go. The outside reflects the inside. Remember that often the outside order reflects the inside. If you start to bring a little clarity to your surroundings, you will see that little by little, this clarity will also reach your mind. It's not magic, it's a process. It's like when you decide to clean a drawer and suddenly you feel lighter because in each thing in its place is one less worry. Each object you let go of is a step towards a lighter and clearer life. The Stoics do not complicate their lives with unnecessary things. They knew that the key was to focus on what really mattered and let the rest pass. As simple as that. Living in a world full of physical and mental clutter is like walking in a maze with no way out. But when you start to get rid of what you don't need, you discover that the way out was always there. You just couldn't see it because of the excess. If you want peace of mind, start by organizing what is around you. Do it slowly, without noise, but constantly. Your mind will thank you. As Nelson Mandela said, when the noise is silent, the essential becomes clearer. 10 unnecessary comparisons. Sometimes I wonder why you have this habit of comparing yourself to others. Come on, don't give me excuses. We all do it, but tell me, do you really think it serves any purpose? It's like running in a competition in which others don't even know they are participating, and the worst, probably they don't even care. Meanwhile, you're there in your head, measuring every step, every stumble, every small advance, but not yours or others. Comparing yourself is like trying to win a singing contest using someone else's voice. It doesn't make sense. You have your own melody, your own rhythm, but you insist on following someone else's score. The problem is that this seemingly harmless habit undermines your self-esteem. Little by little, you wake up one day feeling that you're not good enough, that you not fast enough, that you're not good enough at something. All this because you're too busy looking around instead of focusing on what's in front of you. The truth is that life is not a speed race. It's more like a boat crossing. You choose the course, the stops, and the rhythm, but if you're to focus on the boats that pass you by, all you manage to do is steer your own helm. The most curious thing, while you watch someone else's boat, they're probably doing the same to you. That's how this absurd comparison works. Everyone looks at others, but no one enjoys your own journey. Stop comparing yourself and do it in silence. Eliminate this practice as one of the things you take away from life without making a fuss. It's like getting rid of an old t-shirt that you no longer wear. No one needs to know, but you will feel the difference. Comparing yourself to others is not only useless, it is a betrayal against yourself. It is like telling your inner self that it is not enough, that you need to be someone else to be worth something. But think about it. This philosophy makes no sense. The Stoics already said the only valid comparison is with who you were yesterday. So what to do when the comparison starts? Don't try to silence the voice. Question. When you notice that inner voice starts to compare, listen to what it says. But question its logic. Why are you comparing yourself to this person? What exactly makes you feel inferior? Remember what you have already achieved. Take a break and reflect on your own progress and achievements. We often forget how far we have come when we are constantly looking at others. Another strategy that works is to practice gratitude. Yes, I know it seems like old advice, but I assure you it is powerful. Be thankful for what you have, for what you have achieved, for who you are. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack or what others have, something suddenly changes. The weight of comparison begins to fade, and you realize that the only path that matters is yours. Life is too short to waste time competing in an imaginary race with others. Comparing yourself only distracts you from what really matters. Living your life at your own pace with your own rules. And when you start doing that, you realize how liberating it is. My friend, I'm going to leave you with a reflection that helped me a lot in the most difficult moments. When you stop seeing yourself through the eyes of others, you discover who you really are. I sincerely hope that this message has been useful. I want to sincerely congratulate you for getting this far and completing the video. This means that you want to improve as a person. If you like the video, leave your comment. If you don't know what to comment, comment with gratitude. This way I'll know that you watched until the end. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and join us. Stoicism is full of teachings like this that are applied to the world. Therefore, I encourage you to continue learning about this philosophy. I leave here the videos full of Stoic wisdom so that you can continue learning until the next one.